Hello, everyone. It is Romania Black, and we're on episode 67, 68, and 69 of Ace of the Diamond. Oh my gosh. So the last episode, or set of episodes, was all about Kataoka apparently resigning. Not happy about that. About our characters going from losing their third years to now having to restart without them. And what do? You have a new captain, you have new team dynamics, there are players fighting for those spots that were left open. We lost quite a few, so there's a lot of spots left open, so it was just crazy. And I've spent today going through the episode comments for 64 through 66, and with that, there's a lot about Kataoka and Miyuki. And I like Miyuki as a flawed captain. Miyuki is not a... I like the comparison that one of y'all made where it was like, Yuki was a workaholic. Yuki worked for that role as captain. He knew exactly what it was like to struggle, very much like what Zono and Kuramochi were telling Miyuki. Miyuki doesn't really know what it's like to struggle. He's a prodigy. Miyuki is a genius. So Miyuki's never really struggled. He's just... everything's just come naturally to him. So Yuki had to be a workaholic and really work for that captain's position. And so he'd earned all of his fellow players' respect. Whereas I think the team respects Miyuki for how good of a player he is and for the instinct and insight that he has. But as far as communication skills go and relating to people who struggle, Miyuki's not the best at that. So it's going to be interesting to see how Kuramochi and Zono try to help him along the way. And Miyauchi, the third year catcher, that I just now got his name right, him giving Miyuki a little bit of a push as well. So I wrote some names down because there's been some of these side characters that are slowly becoming more prominent in the story. Fumiya is the one that looks like Sawamura, only a little more handsome. And then you have Kanemaru, and Kanemaru is the blonde one that it was always like calling him Sawamura. So fun times. But yeah, I was going to comment about Kataoka. I'm still so torn up about it. And there was a little back and forth about why he made that decision. And you get that he was really attached to the third years. They were like his first team. He was really attached to them. And when they were like his babies. And when they didn't make the national tournament, he just felt like he was doing a disservice staying on his coach. And I get those emotions, but I'm like, Kataoka, Sawamura looks up to you and respects you, and you're just going to leave him? You know those first years all look up and respect him. The second years too, and you're just going to leave? I'm going to talk about Haikyuu spoilers for a hot second. So if you want to I'm going to make this signal, and that means I'm done talking about Haikyuu spoilers. So if you're skipping ahead and you see this, that means I'm done talking about Haikyuu spoilers. But okay, real quick. I made this comparison in my head today thinking about it. But Kataoka leaving would be like if Coach Ukai because at first I was like, well, Coach Ukai didn't leave after the third years were over, so what does it matter? But then I was like, well, Coach Ukai's babies were really Hinata and Kageyama and Tsukishima and Yamaguchi. They were kind of like his baby team, and so he followed them. But as we find out, they don't win nationals in their third year, so it's like, did Ukai, and then you find out later that Ukai didn't leave after Hinata's group was gone. He stayed on and was still coach for like 7 years after that. So I'm like, if Ukai, who had no interest in coaching whatsoever and originally had no passion and then developed it through Hinata and his team, if he can stay on the team past a loss, surely you can too, Kataoka. I was like, if Ukai can stay on, so can you. So I was like, but okay, it's enough Haikyuu spoilers. I'm done with that. So anyway, but yeah, I'm just very conflicted about about Kataoka leaving. And I hope that Ochiai is very interesting. I'm excited to get more into him, but I hope that Sawamura and the others, them playing and developing and growing as a team, convinces Kataoka to stay. I just want that. I don't think that's a lot to ask. But aside from that, I am really torn about... I want Sawamura to be the ace so badly, but he has a lot of issues. Like, Miyuki kept getting on to him about control in the last set of episodes. Sawamura has talent and potential, limitless potential. He could be like Mei. If Sawamura honed in and controlled his talents like Mei, he could be like him. But he's just not there yet. I think there's so much going on in Sawamura's head right now that Sawamura is trying to stay positive despite the loss. He's trying to deal with the fact that the third years that he cares about are leaving. He's trying to be a good player and have the spirit of an ace. And it's just hard for him to do all of that at once and have control. And so I have a feeling that Miyuki's got his work cut out for him, not only with Sawamura, but with the others as well. So as much as I want Sawamura to be ace, I feel like it's going to be Furuya. If anything, it's not going to be Nori. I gave Nori a hard time the last 7 episodes, and I feel bad for him. But I just don't think Nori is. I don't think Nori was ace material from before the game against Inashiro. I didn't think Nori was ace material, but I definitely don't now. So yeah, I'm curious. We don't know exactly what the other players are all doing. All the third years are doing after high school. We haven't established that. We've established Tomba went to one tryout and he's planning on taking the exam to get into the university, but we haven't seen what any of the other third years are doing. So I really hope that by the end of this season we at least see that. I don't know if it'll happen. As per the last set of episodes, I've been told not to watch the ED until episode 71. So I'm going to hold off on that until that moment comes. But we're facing Yakushi soon. I think we have 2 more scrimmages, like Chiba and Akai. We have 2 more scrimmages and then Yakushi. If we need anybody to come in with a ray of positivity in this doom and gloom scenario, it's Raichi. I need my boy Raichi. I need my coach Todoroki. I need those bumbling fools. I need them back in this. I would love Coach Todoroki to just have a one-on-one with Kataoka and like slap him across the face and be like, "Why are you quitting?" Like I know that he has no place in knowing that, but I'm pretty excited. The last set of episodes was so good. And I honestly like this kind of downtime in between matches because it's like a refresher and it gets more character development, things like that. It's like a nice breather in between games, but I'm ready to dive in, y'all, and see what happens in these episodes. This episode's called The Kick. So maybe it's like a kickstart, maybe, to get this team back on track, but we shall see. So let's do this, shall we? We are going to start episode 67 of Ace of the Diamond here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. I want to cry. I hated this set of episodes. I really hated it. Episode 69 is the worst. It's been the worst episode of the whole series. Not because it was bad, but because I want to, like, crawl in a hole and die. Our boy! Our sunshine boy! Oh my god, no! He's like an imploding sun. I'm not joking. I've, like, been on the edge of tears the last episode and a half. Because it's so hard seeing our boy Sawamura suffer like this, and it's like self-imploding, and there's so many. God, we just need to talk about this. We just need to talk it out. I'm not kidding. This episode has been so frustrating. I'm so pissed. So mad. I'm so mad at this for a number of reasons. Because Ochiai is judging him based on this one game that he's seen with him, and he's not seen like all the good that he's done. And I'm so frustrated with Miyuki. I'm so frustrated with him. Because he can't figure out how to read Sawamura and communicate properly with him, and he doesn't. We need to talk about this. God, these episodes were rough. Straight up not having a good time, bro. That's how I feel. That's how I feel right now. I'm straight up not having a good time. Okay. We need to break it down episode by episode because I freaking love Yakushi. And there's like a solution to this if Sawamura would just see it, but okay. So let's start with episode 67. Let's start with the calm episode, the episode that was not nearly as frustrating. So the kick, that episode. So I find it interesting that most of Yakushi's players are first years. They're just monster offensive people, and you've got Raichi, who's a freak of nature. But I like this. I like that the idea of making an impression, that the first years and the second years want to make an impression, right? that's really, really good. And that we've cut to Raichi, and Raichi's like saying all the names of the batters, and he's like, Tamba, this, like all the ones he's imitating, and they're like, Tamba's gone, don't focus on him anymore. Like, it's so good. You can't help but love Raichi's character, right? Raichi is such like a big ball of energy, and honestly, Raichi is, at first, earlier on in the season, I compared Sawamura and Raichi together, but Raichi has way more positive energy. Raichi is so, like, his own dad, Coach Todoroki, is like, my son's an idiot. He's like, my son's stupid, but he's got a good heart. He's gonna be famous one day. Big oaf. Raichi's so good. I love his spirit. I love his character. I really like Sanada with Raichi, because you would think, on the surface, looking at Sanada, and I think it's also because of the VA playing his voice, on the surface, you would think Sanada would be kind of like snooty or kind of like Mei, but he's not. He's not like Mei at all. Sanada is really down to earth and cheeky, and he takes Raichi like just along with him for the ride, and he's just like, let's go do it, buddy. Like, he's such a fun, Sanada's such like a cool cucumber character, and for him to just like totally be on board with Raichi and the others is really, really neat. But so I like the idea of the theme. Miyuki's like, what's the theme for this time? And Sawamura's like, freedom. Freedom's our theme. Like, and they won against Chiba, but then they lost again. And Sawamura's whole theme is kind of like, he's a free spirit pitching. He does that weird form and everything, but Sawamura's thing has been control. And Sawamura has some PTSD, right? I don't think Furuya has any PTSD from pitching. Furuya's, it's weird to say this, Furuya's more simple than Sawamura, and that sounds weird. That sounds weird to say, because you're like, on the surface, Sawamura seems like a simple sunshine character like Raichi. But honestly, at this point in the series, the ones who are more similar are Furuya and Raichi. They're the more similar ones, because all Furuya wants to do is pitch. That's all Furuya wants to do. He wants to pitch and win the game for the team. That's it. Furuya doesn't seem like a character that he ignores Sawamura, and he gets jealous and Furuya gets jealous of the fact that he's not on the mound, but Furuya doesn't get jealous of the fact that he's not the ace, or isn't considered to be the ace. The title to Furuya doesn't really matter. All Furuya associates the title with is being able to be on the mound more. That's the big difference between Sawamura and Furuya right now. Sawamura is equating the ace to being the best you can possibly be. If you're at the top of your game, you're the ace. And so I think when Sawamura looks at Mei and sees that he's the indisputable ace, then he's like, oh, well, if I'm the ace, then I can be as powerful as Mei. And that's not really all there is to it. You've got to be a strong pitcher to be the ace. You don't have to be the ace to be a strong pitcher. I think that's where Sawamura is getting things confused. He's like, well, if I can be the ace, then that means I'm a strong pitcher. And it's like, that's not validation, right? You can be a strong pitcher without being the ace. Look at Kawakami. Look at Furuya. Look at Mishima in this case. Look at the other pitchers that aren't aces of their team. Like, you don't have to be an ace to be a strong pitcher. And I think Sawamura thinks that if you are the ace, you are the end-all, be-all, indisputable best pitcher. And that's not necessarily true. And so I want to talk about that later. But Furuya just associates that the ace is the one that's on the mound the most. And so Furuya doesn't think that being the ace means that you're the strongest pitcher. He's like, if I'm the ace, I'm on the mound the most. And that's all that Furuya cares about. So in some regards, Furuya is a lot more simple than Sawamura in terms of his motivations and emotionality. He's more like Raichi. Raichi just wants to hit the ball. He wants to hit anybody's ball that's given to him. It's like, cool. So that's so interesting. But I like that Miyuki's saying that, but Miyuki's communication skills suck. I'm just going to say it. And then when we get to episode 68 and 69, I was about to flip this table over because I was so frustrated. I was like, did you? And that goes back to Ochiai. Ochiai said at the very beginning of episode 67, watching all the players bat, he's like, did you learn anything from the previous generations? Because Ochiai is seeing kind of the methods of Kataoka's like training methods. He's like, here's what we do. We do this, we do this. And it's just the tried and true method. And Ochiai almost seems like he's questioning it, being like, yeah, this method, it's a method, sure. But are these kids learning from their predecessors? Are they seeing what their predecessors have done that has worked and not worked, and are they learning from it, or are they just following the motions and going with the traditional flow and not thinking about how can they change things and tweak things to make them better? I don't think Kataoka has a very tried and true method that he supports and he's backed, and he's like, well, we're just going to do it like this because it's been effective. And Ochiai, I think Ochiai is more of an individualist. He's like, well, we need to tailor our practices and tailor our strategies to fit this team. Not just Sato as a whole, but to fit this specific team and their strengths and weaknesses, and not just go with a method because it's strong, go with a method because it's the most effective for this specific team. That's what I think Ochiai's strategy is going to be. It's going to differ a little bit from Kataoka. And I find it fascinating that Ochiai is just observing right now. He's just stroking his tiny goatee, his tiny little beard, and thinking about things. So Yakushi's coach in Kataoka, I like that Yakushi's coach is like, gives him a big shake and he's like, yeah, I love Todoroki. The Todorokis are great. I love Coach Todoroki and how laid back he is and how assured he is, and he's just like, go with the flow. He's like, let's just do the damn thing. I love that mentality. He never seems like he's overworked. He's just like, whatever happens, happens. What's done is done. I love that phrase. We'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, I love Raichi and Sanada just having fun. Just Raichi jumping the fence, being like, hey guys, I've come to bat against you. And Sanada being like, hey boys, I'm the sexiest player in the series. Sanada is a very good looking character. And then them calling him Mishima, and he's like, stop it. I like Mishima a lot. He's really cool. I like him. He's the first year pitcher that's starting out the game. I like that a lot. And so see that, we'll talk about him and Sanada. I feel like Sawamura looked up to Sanada when he was developing the cutter pitch. And I was like, cool. And so what I've been waiting for in this game, what I was waiting for in episode 69 was for Sawamura to get out of his head and realize Sanada's the ace, but he was a relief pitcher. You don't have to be the starter pitcher to be the ace. You don't have to be the pitcher that's on the mound the longest to be the ace. You just have to be the ace in terms of your mentality, your team morale, your pitching ability, your ability to lead the team. Like, those are all things that make you a successful ace. And Sawamura, I think, is getting jealous of Furuya and all the praise that he's getting and the time he's getting on the mound, and he's not thinking about how to improve himself to get on that same level. He's just, it's like, it's the green-eyed monster. It's the curse of jealousy. Like, he can't he's so consumed with trying to be better than Furuya that he's not just focusing on making himself better for himself. And I thought that when you saw Mishima, who pitched just the same amount of innings as Furuya, but he's not the ace. So it's like, and Sanada, you never see Sanada complain about not pitching as much. Sanada just goes out and does what he has to do when he has to do it, and has that mentality, and he's clearly the ace. Anyway, so we'll talk about Sawamura a lot in this, but I also feel a little bit for Haruichi, because throughout, not so much in the latter half of these episodes, but in episode 67 especially, there was a lot of things being like, oh hey, it's Ryo's younger brother, it's the younger brother, it's the brother, you're living up to your brother's footsteps. I feel for Haruichi, because I feel like his struggle is going to be making himself his own person. Even when he was doing like the bunt thing, everybody's like, oh well, he can take over from Ryo and be the next bunter. It's like, I want Haruichi to be his own person, and that's going to be hard for a while because he's Ryo's brother. There's going to be a lot of that, like, in your brother's shadow sort of thing going with him, and I don't like that. I like that him and Kuromochi have a great relationship and that they're building on what Ryo and Kuromochi had, but I want Haruichi to become his own person, and I want the crowd to kind of recognize Haruichi as Haruichi and not Ryo's brother. So that stuck out to me. I was like, and then I like Sawamura's giving him bunt advice, and Haruichi's like, But yeah, what's done is done. I love that mentality of Todoroki. And again, that's the mentality Sawamura is struggling with so much, because Sawamura, it all made sense by the end of this episode, and Miyuki finally puts two and two together, that Sawamura is not pitching inside because he is terrified of hitting someone again. Like, that's PTSD. That is straight up trauma. Like, he hit somebody in the face, he doesn't want to do it again, and he's struggling because of it. And Todoroki's mantra, what's done is done. He's like, the inning's over. We can't go back and change it. Let's just focus on change the future with your batting. And I think Sawamura needs to adopt that mantra of what's done is done and move forward, and he just can't do it yet. But, oh my gosh. So the idea of the ace. Furuya is... Here's my problem. I feel so bad. I wanted to cry for Sawamura in this set of episodes because I feel so badly for him. He wants to be the ace so bad. And you want to root for him to be the ace. You want Sawamura to become the ace. But he's just clearly not there yet. And I can't hate Furuya. I can't, because Furuya's not doing anything wrong. Furuya's not being mean. Furuya's not shoving it in Sawamura's face. He's not taunting him or teasing him or anything. Furuya's doing nothing. He's just being Furuya. And he's trying to be the strongest player he can be. Furuya knows his weaknesses. He knows what he has to improve upon, and he's trying to do it. So I love Furuya, and I love him for it. I just feel so sad for Sawamura. Furuya wants to be like... I feel like Furuya and Sawamura both look up to Mei for different reasons. Furuya sees Mei and sees a pitcher that can pitch for 9 innings without getting tired. And Furuya's like, I want to do that. Sawamura sees Mei and sees this unbreakable spirit and dominant force that drives his team and is still an amazing pitcher, and he wants to be that. It's like they both look up to Mei for different aspects. And Furuya pitching almost 7 innings is an improvement. It's better. He's getting better. It's so bad. I want Furuya to become the ace and to become a better pitcher, but I also want Sawamura to become the ace. So it's like, what do? What can you do? You can't have both. I do like that Kataoka, when Furuya pauses, Kataoka's question is, what do you want? What do you need? What do you need? Like, what can I help you with? Like, in that moment, he's like, what can I help answer? What question can I answer for you? And this one, Furuya wants to pitch more. So, yeah, Sawamura and him seeing Mei differently. So, yeah, but Furuya was on fire this episode. He was on fire. It was very reminiscent to several episodes back when Furuya was starting at the game and he was just, like, having a great pitch, great day. Getting Todoroki out, Tojo and I like that it's Tojo catching it. I like that we're seeing more with Tojo. I like Tojo's character a lot. He's really cute. He's fun. He's really lively. People on the other teams know Tojo. That's the thing. Tojo is a known player. Mishima knows him. The other players of Yakushi know him. They were like, oh, you were on the team that went to nationals and got into the semifinals. Oh my God. Like they know Tojo. And I like that Mishima kind of starts to give something at Tojo where he's like, oh, well, you were a pitcher and now you're just backing away. I was like, I'll show you a pitch full of ambition. And then he gets the hit off of it. And Tojo, like June, is talented at the bat. I feel I was talking in the last set of episodes, the comparison between Tojo and June. I think there's a lot of comparisons there. And I think that Tojo could become the June character. I see, in part, if we're comparing third years, I see Sawamura a lot like Tamba, but I want Sawamura to have a better year than Tamba. But I see Sawamura and Tamba having a lot of similarities. I do. And Tamba ended up becoming the ace, but there wasn't another pitcher like Furuya that Tamba was up against, right? And Furuya, I see a lot like Yuki. Furuya is a reliable, strong presence. So I feel I could see in the end, in their third year, my hope would be that Sawamura would become the ace and Furuya would become the captain, kind of like Yuki and Tamba. But I don't know. We're a long way from that. But yeah, God. I like that Raichi said he's like darkness on the mound when he nearly hits Mishima with his bat, and Raichi's like, I'm not dark. I'm like, that would be funny if he ended up becoming it. But yeah, Ochiai watching and observing and taking note. And I was starting to feel really bad because Ochiai just seems to dog Sawamura and instantly doubt him. He's like, Kataoka has high hopes for this kid, but he sucks. And it's like, he's having a bad game. This is Sawamura's worst game. I hate it. I hate it. So they talk about Zono having no technique. And I find that interesting that Zono has power and presence, but no technique. And they connected a little bit to June. Zono does, where Zono gets inspiration from June, because June's like, I don't think about, this, or this. I just think about hitting the ball and getting on the mound and getting on the base. So yeah, so top of the sixth, Furuya on fire, but he's starting to get tired and wind down, and then he gets his second win there at the end. He gets his second win and is able to make it through. But God, that reliever line. Oh, that reliever line. Ah! The moment he describes Sawamura as a reliever, it was like in that moment, you know he's going to make Furuya the ace. And Sawamura, that crushed his spirit, because it's like everything he's worked towards, like his hopes and dreams and ambitions. Tombo's gone. You know Nori's not going to be the ace. So he's like, I have a chance. I can pitch. And then the moment he said that reliever line, it's like, that hurt. That hurts so much. Because that's the last thing. And he can't talk to Nori about it, because Nori's like, I'm a reliever, you know? What are you going to say? He's like, relievers suck. And Nori's like, well, that's what I do. But the thing of it is, I want Sawamura to look up to Sanada on Yakushi's team, not just for his pitching style, because Sanada is a lot like Sawamura. Eijun and Sanada are very similar. Their pitching styles are very similar. They joked episodes ago that Sanada was the hyped up, 2.0 version of Sawamura. And they're not wrong, but I think Sawamura can get just as good as Sanada if he practices and focuses and gets more experience and control. But I want Sawamura to look up to Sanada, not just as a pitcher, but because, not just for his pitching style, but because he's the ace, but he's also kind of a relief pitcher, right? I think in the practice games, they showed Sanada coming in after Mishima, and there was nothing wrong with that. And so I just wanted to look up to him for motivation. But there's a lot of similarities between Furuya and Miyuki, and I've established that since like the beginning of the series. But Furuya being like greedy, and Miyuki said we need to be greedy about winning, and Furuya's like, I'm going to be greedy about getting on the mound. I want the mound for myself. It's mine, and I don't want to give it up. And Furuya's talented, and Sawamura, bless his heart, Sawamura just doesn't have the power and speed of Furuya. He has talent and skill and technique, and if he'd hone on that and not... it's comparing apples and oranges, and I think Sawamura's problem is he thinks that he can be the same type of good that Furuya is, and he can't. They're apples and oranges. They can just be the best versions of themselves. That's all they can do. Furuya is... And the problem is Furuya is working on being the best version of himself. He's working to be the best apple he can be. And Sawamura needs to work on being the best orange that he can be. But Sawamura is trying to be an apple when that's not possible. So it's frustrating for us, the audience, because we can see that, and Sawamura just can't see it. And no one else is recognizing it. Haruichi starts to recognize it, but he kind of tosses it away. That whole line, oh my god, about a bummer, we'll talk about this. But Sawamura is fearless and reckless, normally. And some of you commented that Miyuki and Sawamura are a very good but dangerous battery because they're both reckless, fearless players that are talented but are reckless. They make gambles sometimes, and sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. And so they're kind of a live wire in terms of being a battery. But I'm sorry, Miyuki, I wanted to just shake him in this episode, because when Sawamura is standing there looking like he's seen a ghost and has that like haunting fire in his eyes, Miyuki looks straight at him and he's like, he seems a little tense. I'm like, oh, you think? I was like, you watched that whole finals game against Inashiro. You saw how frustrated and tense and stressed Sawamura was, and you made the comment, I should have talked to him. And you didn't do that here either. He didn't communicate with him either. He was just like, okay, let's go. Even Haruichi noticed that Sawamura didn't start out the game like he normally does. He didn't do the whole big antic waving his arms stuff like he normally does. He was clearly off, and Haruichi noticed it, but Haruichi didn't follow up. He's just like, well, that's a bummer. As soon as he said that bummer line, my heart like dropped into my stomach. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? I'm like, Miyuki, how can you not recognize that Sawamura is not in a good place? And the problem with Miyuki, too, is that Miyuki doesn't know how to handle Sawamura not being in a good place, right? Because for Miyuki, again, it goes back to what Zono and Meiuchi were saying. And they were telling him, they're like, you need to know how to handle players when they're struggling. And Miyuki does not know how to do that. Miyuki's whole thing is like, well, we just suck it up and just do the best we can. And that works for Miyuki. But he doesn't know how to handle Sawamura at this point. He's like, well, Sawamura... And and you can tell he doesn't know how to handle or communicate with Sawamura because he tries multiple things. He tries offering him like just some random advice, like don't worry about it. And then he tries, when Sawamura is like at his lowest point, he tries to shove it off as a joke, thinking, oh, we'll just lighten up the spirit. Like, look at that home run. We'll just lighten up the spirit. That wasn't good either. And then at the very end of this episode, he realizes, oh, he's afraid to pitch inside because he hit that guy in the face. He hit Shirakawa in the face. It's like, no shit, Sherlock. I just wanted to shake him. I'm like, you need to hang out with Sawamura. You guys need to talk something. Some communication after this game has to happen. Because otherwise, Sawamura is screwed. They're going to just not let him pitch anymore. That's where you need Chris to be there. And Chris is gone, so... so frustrating. Stick to your style. He's like, stick to your style, which is true. Miyuki's almost there. He's almost there, right? He's trying to help Sawamura. He's nearly there. He's like, just stick to your style. Like his advice isn't wrong, but he just can't read Sawamura's mood. Because yeah, Sawamura and Miyuki, or Sawamura and Furuya, they're apples and oranges. They cannot be each other. They just can only be the best versions of themselves. And right now, Furuya is pretty much the best version of himself. And today, Sawamura was not the best version of himself. It was bad. It was really bad to watch. I was not cringing, but just, it was frustrating me so much watching him be at this low point. And Kataoka's thinking that too, like, what is up? Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, you want to tell Sawamura, be like, you can't be selfish and jealous about Furuya because you're not going to be the same pitcher as Furuya. So you can't be jealous about if Furuya becomes the ace. You can't be jealous about it. But at the same time, you totally get where he's coming from. You totally get why he thinks that. And why he'd be frustrated by it. And why he'd be discouraged and downhearted about it. Like, you get it. Someone that's hyper-competitive, like Sawamura, that has become hyper-competitive, when you get shut down like that, yeah, that's gonna punch. It's gonna hurt. So, yeah. Yeah, they joke that Raichi's Sawamura's Achilles heel, and he might be. He might be that one guy that just manages to nail his pitch. I mean, granted, he didn't give Raichi a cutter. He gave him a pretty easy pitch. My hope is that in all of this, that Sawamura doesn't pitch well in this game, and Yakushi writes it off that Sawamura is just not good. And then when they have an actual game against Yakushi in the future, then Sawamura pitches, and he's grown since then, and then he gets to use the cutter, and it'll be something cool. Like, I hope they take this horrifically downtrodden moment and make it something positive, because this was hard to watch. It really was. And figuring out that he's afraid of the inside pitch because of Shirakawa. I'm like, y'all need to sit down and talk about some PTSD, talk about how to figure this out, because Sawamura is clearly having some struggle with it. And even Todoroki, he's like, this is... Because Todoroki was joking how the game was boring, but he's like, this isn't even fun anymore. Like, we're not winning because we're bad and good. We're winning because the rival pitcher is crumbling. It's like, I hate it. I hate it so much. I don't hate Furuya. I can't hate Furuya. Furuya's doing the best that he can. He's doing a good job. And I love Furuya, and I'm so happy and proud for him. But I was seriously a few times like wanting to cry out of frustration for Sawamura. I was wanting to tear up because I was like, he just can't get out of his own head. No one's communicating with him properly. He needs to sit down and talk. I could see Kataoka taking him out of the next game. I could say, you need to sit down and think about things and reflect and figure this out before you play any more games. I could seriously see him saying that to him because of how bad he's done in this episode. I could see Kataoka being like, you need to take a walk and figure some stuff out before you come back. This episode has some really good funny moments. Like 67 and 68 were pretty funny. And there was some stuff, like anytime Raichi's on screen, it's just great. But the last episode, 69, it hurt just as much as when they lost Nationals. This episode did. Because Sawamura is so much better than that. And so much better than this. And to see him struggle. And to see nobody really reaching out and really helping him the right way. It's like... And they don't know what Sawamura is going through and what he's thinking because nobody's communicating. Nobody's talking to each other. I'm like, Miyuki, I love you, my gremlin. But he has got to get on Sawamura's level and figure out how the hell to communicate with him, because I'm like, Miyuki was like so stunned in episode 69. I'm like, you're stunned because you're not talking to him to figure out what's wrong. Even in the timeouts, it wasn't helping because nobody was asking the right questions or getting through to him. And I'm sure I'm just in the moment discussing this while I'm like so frustrated. I'm sure in the comments we'll talk about it and I'll calm down, but I was so fired up from this episode. Ugh. So yeah, hope y'all like that reaction. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. I need to take a break and calm down because I'm so mad. But yeah, I'm really worried they're going to lose this game, and it's really going to be Sawamura's fault that they lost, because the other thing is it's going to be Sawamura's fault if they lose because he really did give up so much in this game. All I can hope for is that maybe Kataoka takes him out after this inning, but they don't even have any outs. They don't have any outs. There's no outs. So, God, this is just awful. My hope is that they take him out after this inning because he clearly cannot pitch anymore. They put Kawakami in. Kawakami closes the game and wins it for them. And then Kawakami can talk with Sawamura because he can be like, look, just because you're a relief pitcher doesn't mean that you're not important. It doesn't mean that you don't close the game and win the game for the other team. Because I think, like, Miyuki needs to sit down and talk to Sawamura. They need to sort this whole PTSD out with him and be like, why are you afraid of inside pitches? He is, but they need to talk about it. And Kawakami needs to talk to him and be like, it's okay to be a relief pitcher. It's okay if you're not the ace. I know that's your end-all be-all, but it's okay. You're still a valuable member of the team, even if you're not the ace. Because it's kind of insulting to Kawakami, right? When Sawamura was getting really mad about being a relief pitcher, it's like, that's kind of insulting to Kawakami because Nori's like, that's what I've been doing the last 2 years. It's okay. It's still somebody you rely upon and that you need, but I'm curious to know what y'all thought of this episode. I'm excited to talk to y'all in the comment section about it, but I was not joking. I was about to cry, and I still feel like they're not tears of sadness. They're like just frustration. It's always darkest before the dawn, though, right? 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 In the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week with episodes 70 through 72 of Ace of the Diamond. We're almost to the end of the season. Hope it ends on a good note.